Testing, testing. All right. Let's see who's going to be online today. It is about, let's see, just about 1 minute to 12. So we'd like to start to welcome everyone who is logging on and getting themselves situated. We're not going to start for at least another minute or two to allow you some time to get settled in, maybe get a cup of coffee, or if you have that PDF that I sent out, maybe you can print off that and get ready to take some notes. But first of all, I'd like to test out my system. So if everyone can hear me okay, for those of you who are online already, if you could just shoot me a quick chat in the questions box saying yes, you can hear me, and if I'm coming through clear. All right, good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Very nice. Good, good. We're going to have fun today. I expect a really full house. We had, man, just a ton of people register, but I realized that it is in the middle of the day on a Wednesday, and not everybody can break away to attend. Maybe you're on your lunch hour. For those of you on the West Coast, maybe it's early in the morning and you're just starting work. But anyway, you do have access to this. I am recording it. Sometimes the recordings don't come through as I would like them to, but I'm trying out a couple of new features, a new system, so hopefully this one will record just fine. And for those that missed the live presentation today, I'm definitely sending recording. Also, just to let everyone know, I'm going to try to make my portion of this webinar end about 10 to 15 minutes early, because many of you have questions that you've been emailing on, and I appreciate you sending me the little survey form that I sent out. And what I'd like to do is, through the webinar today, and especially at the end, is take as many of your live questions as possible and answer them, because if you have these questions, most likely others have the same ones. So what I'm going to do is try to make it as extremely affordable and educational as possible and make this well worth your time today. So let's see. I guess it's 1 minute after. All right, to begin. Welcome, everyone. This is Dennis K. Coming to you from Belize. Remax Southwind is my office in Belize. Many of you have gotten familiar with my work by maybe watching some of my YouTube videos, or maybe you've purchased my Belize Relocation and Investment Guide. My wife and I have been living in Belize full-time for well over, what is it now? 9, 10, 11 years. We lived in the mainland of Belize for a few years, then switched over to Ambergris Key. It was more to our liking. And this photograph here was taken literally just steps out our front door at Royal Palm Villas. This is a view of the beautiful Caribbean Sea. You can see the faint reef line out there. That's where all the snorkeling, diving, and fishing takes place. This is our typical view on any given day. And I work with Remax Southwind, or as we're going to be named, Remax Professionals. Like I said, been a full-time resident of Belize for 11 years now, and I've had a really, really good time relocating to Belize from Michigan. That's where I was born and raised, and I've been specializing in helping people to not only relocate to Belize, but also to invest in Belize, whether or not they're considering the country of Belize as a place to relocate. I work very, very closely with John Turley. Many of you are also familiar with his work. He's been speaking almost weekly at various engagements around the United States, talking to groups of investors, real estate syndicators, those looking to park their cash somewhere better than the market, which isn't performing very well right now. And John recently became the Remax Caribbean and Central American CEO, so he owns that franchise for the region. And John and I work very, very closely together. And of course, Dennis Mattis, he's also on my team. I'm just kind of going through, giving a little bit of history now of who I am and who I work with, to sort of paint the picture now of who you're listening to, since many of you I have met, but not all. Dennis Mattis is my man on the ground. He does a lot of my tours for me on the island. Dennis is a local born and bred Belizean, born and raised in Belize City, has a depth of knowledge about the island, and especially regarding land sales and various up-and-coming subdivisions. So if you go down to Belize, you will most likely meet Dennis. And there you go. So let's get on with it. For those of you who have been following me for a little bit, you know that after I took the Investor Summit at Sea Cruise back in March, and I had the opportunity to spend a good amount of time with Robert Kiyosaki, I launched a new live webinar there in March regarding his book, Second Chance, and how a lot of what he talks about in Second Chance applies to those who are investing in Belize. and many of you got a big kick out of that webinar. The sales were tremendous because of it. Unfortunately, that was one where the recording did not work out. So if any of you missed that, I'm just going to have to do it again and tape it again. But the second webinar event that I did in May also went very well, and that taping did go well. So if you're interested in hearing about what Leonardo DiCaprio is doing in Belize with his island Blacador Key, and especially how that is affecting the real estate market there, go ahead and just look on my YouTube channel, type in Dennis K II or Dennis K II, or if you can't find it, just email me and I will send you the link to that webinar. It's about an hour long, and it's packed full of fascinating information on what this man is doing in the country of Belize and how it is affecting property owners, and especially how it's affecting the market on Ambergris Key. Now, today's webinar is going to be a little bit different. I'm noticing that many of you are logging on now, and I have a good amount of you who are already property owners in Belize. So this information is going to be really good for you, because you're going to see how what you have invested in is now even more important perhaps than the day you bought it. And for those of you who haven't really invested in Belize yet, but are just sort of gathering some facts and wondering what this is all about, today's webinar is going to be highlighting a man named Simon Black. For those of you who aren't familiar with Simon Black, go to sovereignman.com after this webinar, of course, not now. Simon Black has issued just a tremendous amount of information regarding the need to become self-reliant, and he wrote something called the 6 Pillars of Self-Reliance, which we're going to go through in detail in this webinar, and we're going to show how in each of these areas it's important that we take full control of our lives and not relegate our position either globally with all our different assets and all the different things that we have to take control of our life with, to someone else or something else. And it really highlights the need to decentralize and not to bet our entire life and the entire lives of our family and our futures on one single country and one single currency. If I had to sum up Simon Black, I would say that he is exactly what this screen says. He is an international investment intelligent service agent, and he publishes information daily. If you haven't subscribed yet to his blog, go ahead and do so. You'll get an email a day from him, packed full of really interesting information. In fact, Robert Kiyosaki on the cruise said that he doesn't read anything daily but Simon Black's blog posts. So it's really, really good. Simon has visited over 116 countries and travels to 40 to 50 countries annually, with the sole purpose of looking for investment solutions. We're going to see how Belize is one of those investment solutions. And his approach is this: with the fragility and danger that exists right now in the United States, many people need to consider what their plan B is and to set up something to protect themselves from government, from the devaluation of the dollar, from banking systems, from all sorts of things that can and most likely will go wrong in the future. The solution for these people who want to take action is to decentralize. He coined an interesting term regarding this strategy of diversification. He called it internationalization. And we're going to be focusing on that term throughout the webinar. So let's get into the meat of what we're going to talk about today. Here are the 6 pillars of self-reliance. Number 1, and we're going to consider these in detail, but this is just the overview. Number 1, move your money to safety. We're going to consider a little bit about foreign banking and why that's important. Number 2, establish new routes abroad, whether it be a second residence or a second passport. Number 3, don't bet your life on a single currency. In other words, have alternative stores of value in mind and in place. Number 4, rely on yourself. Get some personal resilience in there. Number 5, grow your wealth. And number 6, protect what you hold dear. So I guess as a prelude to going into some of these, what we're going to talk about today is global diversification, true diversification, and not faux diversification. In other words, having a closet full of white shirts doesn't make your wardrobe diversified, right? So what we're going to look at is this. We're going to, first of all, define our reality. The reality as it sits today, we need to be actively engaged in solving our own problems, making our own decisions, and we need to develop an independent mindset, not allowing the system to tell us how to run our lives and where to make our investments. What we're going to focus on is the entire universe of possibilities for us and our families, and not just limiting our choices. And to do that, Simon Black offers a unique perspective on this, something he calls the planting of flags. He said, think about a flag as a portion of your life. All right, so we're going to sort of break this down now. You have a banking flag. So you have a bank or a credit union, or maybe a series of banks that you use to handle your funds. Most likely those banks are in the United States. You also have a residency flag. All right, if you're born in the United States or in Europe or in Canada, you have a primary place of residency that probably comes with a passport. You have a business flag. That business flag could be your own personal business, or maybe you're an entrepreneur. Could be that you're an employee, but you have a key set of business skills, something that produces income. All right. Now you also have investment flags. Those could be an IRA, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, gold, silver, all sorts of investment flags. And that might include real estate in your home city. Perhaps you have your house, you have rental properties in your own state, or maybe even in other states, and you may be considering real estate abroad to see how that might compare with establishing a different flag. Now, there's two words that Simon Black uses when he talks about the planting of flags. He says these flags would determine how robust and redundant your financial life is, and that will affect how free your freedoms really are. Now, just so we get clear on these words, let's take a look at the definition of robust. The definition of robust means to be strong and effective, and now notice all or most situations and conditions. And the definition of redundant is, one definition is unnecessary or superfluous. We're not looking at that definition, but rather something added or duplicated as a precaution against error and failure. Now, one of the ways we might illustrate this is this. This person is building a very robust and redundant home. Look at this thing. It's got massive concrete pilings, concrete beams, concrete walls, and look at the roof that he's installing on there. This is a solid poured concrete roof with concrete trusses. Obviously, most days of the year and most years, this house is overbuilt. It's redundant. A roof is just meant to keep the rain out and the sun from beating down on its inhabitants. This house is built for those rare events, such as a massive tornado or a massive hurricane, that would wipe out other houses that weren't as robust and redundant. So the person building this house is planning for worst case scenario. He's trying to make his house storm resistant. There may be damage to the house. I doubt it. I mean, look at this thing. It's a beast. There may be damage, but it doesn't matter what comes, this house will still be standing at the end of it. So what Simon Black really encourages us to do is to look at our various flags, our banking, residency, business, investment, real estate, and see if it's robust and redundant. In other words, it's not just good during good times, but we're also planning for the catastrophe times, those times when things aren't so good, those times where it's all going wrong. So how can we do this? Well, it gives one example here. Look at your banking flag. If you do all of your banking in one country and in one currency, then you do not have diversification. You're not protected against that particular bank's failure. You're not protected if that currency collapses like it did in Argentina, like it did in many, many other countries. So what we're talking about as far as your banking flag goes is create redundancy with that banking flag. Don't put all of your eggs in the proverbial one basket. Have many, many baskets. Have banking options outside of your hometown bank, outside of your hometown country. Now, this is very, very easy to do these days. You can easily open a foreign bank account in many countries where the banks are not only more solid, more liquid, but also the country itself is in better financial shape than the United States. You can also hold some of your funds in alternative currencies, or you can even buy gold or silver and store it in a private vault overseas. This diversifies and protects your assets by taking some of the eggs out of that primary basket and putting them physically something else. So this leads us into the first pillar of self-reliance. Number one, move your money to safety. Open a foreign bank account. Now, why is this important? Well, many of us grow up thinking, I know I did, that a bank is a place of safety and security. After all, they're responsible with my money. My money must be safe. However, this belief that banks are solid and stable and just unable to be affected by things is completely unfounded, as we've seen with the banks bailout here in the last recession. And many banks are borderline insolvent now because of the way they can lend money. For instance, if you go to your bank right now, if you go to Bank of America or any of the banks in the United States and you deposit $1,000, they can turn around and loan out $14,000 to $20,000 of loans based on your $1,000 deposit. So the banks are insolvent. Why not choose a bank that doesn't have that type of lending policy? Plus, right now, the government has the ability to go in and freeze your bank accounts. Now, this happens more often than not. If they just even think or have an inkling that you're doing something illegal, even if you're not, they can freeze your account. I know personally of someone in South Carolina who has a very, very successful business. They're very, very honest people. They pay all their taxes to a dime, and within the past 12 months, the government suspected them of illegal activity and froze all of their bank accounts worth millions, and all they had was the cash they had available in their house, the shoebox cash, you might call it. So the government can do this. How to protect yourself from that is store some of your funds, maybe not all of them. Obviously, we're not suggesting you take your entire bank account in the States and put it somewhere else, but why not take a portion of those funds and move them to a safer place, a bank in a country with a healthy balance sheet? Now, Simon Black recommends Singapore, Hong Kong, and Norway because those are known as easy to set up foreign banking countries. So you can easily set up an offshore account there. And banking, foreign banking, is not just for the mega rich. I mean, I guess offshore accounts have always had this negative connotation. I know they did in my mind of you're trying to hide something from the government. You're trying to squirrel your money away into the Cayman Islands or in Switzerland. That's not the idea here. The idea is not to hide money from the IRS. It's not to engage in illegal activities. It's simply to put your money somewhere else so that it's safer. Now, how could Belize offer a solution to this? Well, one way is by simply opening up a bank account at BCB, or British Caribbean Bank. It's a subsidiary of Belize Bank, and they have a branch right downtown in San Pedro, right in the island, about 4 or 5 blocks from where I live. BCB allows you to open up a foreign bank account, an offshore account. The reason I like offshore accounts in Belize is, first of all, the banks are English speaking. So the forms you need to fill out, your bank manager, your contact people there, it's all English speaking. You can also hold funds in different currencies. So you can hold funds in US dollars, Canadian dollars, British pounds, and also your bank is easily accessible physically. I mean, of course, all banks now are online. You can do your wire transfers online. You can have your debit card or a credit card attached to the account, not a problem. You can do that with banks in Hong Kong and Singapore and Norway. But if you ever really wanted to go to the bank and have a one-on-one meeting with your bank representative, that's an awful long way to fly. With Belize, it's probably somewhere you're going to want to go anyway. And so when you're down on vacation or down on one of your annual trips, it's easy to pop in the bank, have a one-on-one meeting with your bank representative, maybe go over any loans that you'd like to take out or anything you have outstanding. Very, very easy to do that. Now, what you would need to do in order to open up a bank account is the following. You need notarized copies of your passports. So that's pretty easy. Just take it down, have it notarized. You will need a reference letter from a current bank or credit union, and that reference letter simply needs to state this: Mr. Smith or Mr. and Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Smith has been banking with our institution for X number of years, and their account is in good standing. That's it. Doesn't have to have any information regarding your balances or your debts and assets or anything like that. A simple reference letter and a similar letter from a CPA, a lawyer, attorney, someone like that, so the bank can have two letters of reference on you on file. Now they do this for one very good reason, is that to cut down on fraudulent bank accounts. So they don't want your drug dealers and mafia and whatnot to use their bank as a place for illegal activities. So they do want some reference letters on you along with your passports, and then they need proof of residence that you live outside of Belize. So maybe a utility bill with your address on it or phone bill, something like that. And with these pieces of information, you can easily open up a offshore bank account. You can do online wire transfers, hold currency in US dollars, British pounds, Canadian dollars, so forth. And it's a way of diversification. All right, so if you had any other questions on that, let me know. I'd be happy to walk you through the process. I can put any of you who are interested in doing that in touch with my contact at BCB, and she'd be happy to help you out. And again, this is nothing that I do that makes me any sort of money. I don't get a kickback. I don't get paid for this. This is just a service I provide for my clients because I think it's important as you're looking to diversify that you establish a foreign bank account to protect some of your assets. Now, the second pillar of self-reliance is this: establish new roots abroad. And you can do that by a couple means. First of all, you can do that by getting a second residence, or by taking it a step further, by getting a second passport. Now, why is that necessary? Well, let's go back into Simon Black's work a little bit. He says we need to make preparations in our life so that we are not chained to any one piece of land or country, but rather we want to have options. So establishing a second country of residency or acquiring a second passport simply gives us more freedom in many different areas. Okay, there are a lot of benefits to being an expat in another country. We'll kind of go through those right now, but these aren't the only benefits that we're talking about. Now, for instance, being an expat in another country, which I've been now for over 12 years, gives you different lifestyle and career opportunities. Many times it gives you a lower cost of living. It absolutely gives you lower taxes. I'm going to go into detail in those taxes later on in the webinar. And it gives you an opportunity to enjoy maybe a climate that you perform in better. So, right now, many of you enjoy your life, and you should be. I hope you are. But maybe you're thinking, you know what? I don't want to live here, wherever here is, for the rest of my life. I like to experience living somewhere else. I'm looking for a life change, a career change. And yeah, if I can get by with a lower cost of living, that'd be great too. And I sure as heck would like to pay lower taxes. And even though right now, let's see, what is it, June 10th, most of my listeners are enjoying some beautiful spring and summertime weather. We know that come September, October, certainly by November, December, most of us are going to be plunged back into ice, cold, and snow. So you might be thinking about a nice climate change. So many people are choosing another country as a place of residence for these reasons. But even if you are not considering moving abroad, you should consider the possibility of getting a second residency and a second passport. Now, here is why. Let me go to the next slide. Let me just grab a sip of coffee here, guys. I'm losing my voice. Because these things can be an insurance policy in the event of social unrest, political turmoil, lawsuits, economic collapse, and other things. So expats in Belize, They enjoy benefits such as being in a country that speaks English, proximity to the United States. They enjoy much lower taxes, a great climate. They find that it's easy to get work permits, residency permits, and passports. And with the QRP program, if you are over the age of 45 and can prove that you have $2,000 a month coming in through your investments, you can get what is almost like getting immediate permanent residency. Now, the requirements for getting these types of paperwork in Belize are extremely simple, especially when you compare it to other countries. I want to go through some of these with you now. Number one are our tourist visa program. Now, what this means is, let's say you come down to Belize and you want to stay. You want to stay for 2 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, right? But you don't necessarily want to go through the paperwork to get a residency permit. What the Belize government allows you to do is every 30 days to go to an immigration office, and they're scattered throughout the country. There's one right above our office in San Pedro, and simply pay a very small fee of $25 a month, and you can get a new 30-day tourist visa once a month, and you can stay in a country like that indefinitely. I think after 6 months it goes up to $50 a month, but still very, very low. I don't know of any country that you can do that in where you can stay that long. Currently, I got a 1-year visa to live in France, and that cost several hundred euros, and that was a nightmare of the paperwork to get through. And Belize doesn't have those types of paperwork nightmares. Very easy. They keep it simple. That doesn't necessarily establish you as a second resident, but it does allow you to live in Belize indefinitely. So if you didn't like where you're living in the States or Canada and you wanted to move to Belize to try it out, Belize makes it very easy. Now, what I recommend is that you do establish residency. After living in Belize full-time for 1 year, you pay a nominal fee. You fill out a form which includes a health certificate and a police background check, and Belize will put a stamp in your passport, which is a one-time permanent stamp, which allows you permanent residency of Belize, which means that for the rest of your life, you can come and go as you please. So this is really important to get. This is what my wife and I have in our passports. We have permanent residency stamps. We have established a second residence outside of the United States. Then, after you have been in Belize for 5 years, you can apply for your citizenship. You can get a Belize passport, which is actually a CARICOM passport. Belize is a member of CARICOM, a community of Caribbean countries who are all working together. So after 5 years, you can actually get your passport. Now, I personally haven't done this yet. I haven't seen the need to do it yet. This webinar has reminded me that it's something I need to do in order to have that passport, because if something were to happen, God forbid, to my US passport, my travel would be extremely limited. With my Belize passport, it allows me mobility. Now, to get these types of visas, the tourist visa, residency permit, and passport, you're talking very, very low application fees. Not much at all. It's not like you're buying your residency like you do in other countries. You don't have to jump through a lot of hoops. The Belize government is very favorable, once you're vetted and proven not to be a criminal, of letting people immigrate to the country of Belize and granting you these types of status. Let's go on to the third pillar of self-reliance. Don't bet your life on a single currency. Now, didn't we already talk about this, setting up a foreign bank account? No, that's not what we're talking about here. Simon Black advises his followers to look at alternative stores of value. So we're looking at currency here, not money, not betting our life on a single source of money like a US dollar compared to a British pound. We're looking for alternative stores of value. Now, that can be different things. It can be physical gold and silver. We just had a nice chat back in March with Peter Schiff of Peter Schiff Gold, and he highly recommends buying gold and silver and storing that offshore. It's very liquid, easy to sell, easy to transfer into other forms of currency. For instance, with gold, let's say you have a $100,000 portfolio and you take 20,000 of that and you convert it into gold. Well, if something happens to the US dollar, you can pull that gold out and you can transfer it into euros or British pounds or Canadian dollars. You can use those funds then. So gold has certain advantages. He also recommends things such as fertile farmland that is producing, right? So you get cash flow, you get some residual income, real estate, and profitable businesses. So here are some stores of value that you could use in Belize, which many of my clients do. First of all, the Belize dollar. Right now, it's pegged to the US dollar at 2 to 1. Many of my clients who have property in Belize who are either selling it with owner carry financing or have invested for cash flow are taking their money not in US dollars, but in Belize dollars and holding it in a local Belizean bank. This is an alternative form of value. Rather than storing your money all in US dollars, you're storing some of your money in a different currency. You can also store your value in vacant land. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why vacant land is one of the best ways to store some of your value. You can choose cash flow properties in Belize, such as the new development, Mahogany Bay Village. That is the largest resort being built in the country of Belize. Opportunities exist there for cash flow options if you're looking to invest $100,000 or more and you're an accredited investor. And also just business opportunities in Belize that cash flow. And because of the way the Belize tax system is structured, many of these alternative stores of value are better than the investments that you might be making right now in the United States. And we'll go into those just a little bit further after we make it through these next few items. Number 4 is rely on your personal resilience in this fragile world. What in the world does that mean, your personal resilience? Well, Simon Black encourages people to be realistic, and for many of you, you're not the sky is falling type people. You have a very positive outlook on life, as I do. I'm not a doomsday prepper. I don't hoard food and hoard water in my house or anything like that, but I am very realistic in my view of the world, as I imagine you are as well, and you realize that at times things can and do go very wrong, and it's good to have a plan B. Thank you for that. Someone just said my phone keeps going out. All right. Is everyone hearing me okay now? Audio connection has been lost. Okay, give me a minute here. All right, is my audio connection restored? All right, very good. Let me just reboot my headset here. Okay, good. All right, so many of us are also realistic, and we realize that it's good to have a plan B. And I tell you what, even though I'm not so much of a doomsday prepper guy, as far as the sky is falling and something horrible is going to happen to the entire United States and I have to flee the country, I do find a good many clients are coming to me and saying, Dennis, I want a place for me and my family to go to in case it does go bad. And so they're picking up small pieces of property in Belize, small homes, maybe little farms, things that at least they have a place to go to that they can be self-sufficient, maybe live off the grid if they absolutely need to. So that's just a small portion there on point number 4. I'm not going to go into that in detail. I don't think it applies a whole lot to Belize, but maybe a few of them might have that mindset. Number 5. This is really important, and this does apply to Belize. Simon Black advises to grow your wealth and entrepreneurship and grow your private investments. Now, how can that apply to Belize? Well, consider this. You can greatly increase your net worth, increase your wealth and assets if you move abroad, and this doesn't have to be permanently. I'm going to go into this in detail in next month's webinar regarding Tony Robbins' book, Money Master the Game. But let's just take one example. Many people don't realize that there are huge tax advantages for U.S. citizens who expatriate for a year or more. There is something called a foreign earned income exclusion. And basically what it means is that when you live outside of the United States and you have a residency outside of the United States, that your taxes are very different than when you lived inside the United States. For example, I use myself as an example. I moved from Michigan, where I paid state tax, I paid federal tax, of course, business tax, and Social Security. When I moved to Belize, I no longer was a resident of Michigan, so I didn't have any Michigan state taxes. But in addition to that, because I was no longer a permanent resident in the United States, I was a citizen, but not a resident, I qualified for this foreign earned income exclusion. And right now, that income exclusion is up to around 98 to 99 thousand dollars per year for an individual, or just under $200,000 per year for a couple. So imagine this, and this is a real life example. I have a client who owned an internet-based business, and his income was much more than this, but let's just say it was $200,000 a year. His wife worked with him in that business. It was an internet-based business, so he could live anywhere in the world. He moved from the United States to Belize, made $200,000 a year living in Belize, and instead of paying state taxes and federal taxes and all the other types of taxes he was paying living in the U.S., all he had to pay was a very, very small amount of business tax and Social Security. So he saved tens of thousands of dollars per year simply by living in Belize. And he stayed there for over 5 years. Think about the money he saved. He used that as a tool to build his wealth. So what Tony Robbins talks about is moving from the city that you're in or the state that you're in to a different city or state, because different states have different tax rates. Well, imagine if you applied that a step further and you move from the US to a country like Belize and you can work remotely. Look what that does as far as building your wealth and putting that money aside for retirement, because it's not just the money that you're saving every year. I mean, think about this. If you can save $10,000 or $20,000 a year or more, depending on your business, let's say $30,000 a year, and you do that for a few years and you're young, what does that do to your retirement as you then invest those funds and you use the law of compound interest? When you go to retire at age 59 or 60 or 65, the money you save by living abroad, and that doesn't even take account your lower cost of living too when you move to a country like Belize. So if you want more information on that, let's set up a one-on-one. I will absolutely walk you through the process and show you how that's possible for you. Let's go on to our next step. Number 6, protect your assets. Once you have done all these 5 steps, the 6th one and final one is asset protection and privacy. You see, by diversifying your life, as Simon Black has described and advised, you are safer, you're more robust, you're more resilient than 99% of your fellow citizens, no matter what happens. You have built into your life a system of protection, and now your last thing is to take that life that you've established and protect it and guard it. Now, how can you do that? Well, one way that we suggest our clients do that in Belize is by the use of IBCs, or simple business companies. How these work is this. Many of you are familiar with LLCs or C Corps. You form a simple corporation in your business because there's certain benefits to doing so. Maybe you hedge your risk to frivolous lawsuits, or maybe there's different tax breaks. Well, when we set up businesses and accounts and property holdings in Belize, we take advantage of what we call IBCs, or international business companies. Now, the two forms that we primarily use are Belizean IBCs and Anguillan IBCs. And here's why we do this. Number 1, protection from lawsuits. The United States has more lawsuits filed per year than any other country in the world. In fact, I think it's 95% of all lawsuits in the world originate in the United States. It's a very litigious society, and you never know what's going to come down the pike. You never know what the future holds, but many people have been wiped out clean by lawsuits. Holding your accounts and holding your properties in IBCs offers a good level of protection against those lawsuits. They also offer privacy. And again, I'm going to stress this because I'm an honest citizen of the United States. I pay my taxes every dime I owe. I hide nothing. We encourage all of our clients to do the same. However, you are allowed by law to set up levels of privacy so that everybody does not have to know your business. I think this is more important in today's world than ever before. This offers a simple way to do business. Having an IBC. They're very simple to form. They're very simple to administrate. You can even have a director be the signer, be the manager of the IBC, so you can be completely hands-off. And what this can serve to do is to minimize legally your taxation, and it offers a great amount of asset protection. And many of you who already own property in Belize know this. You are currently holding your titles in IBCs. Your bank accounts are in IBCs. Again, it's a fancy term, but it simply means a simple company that is simply formed and registered, and just like an LLC you would have in the States. Now, to give you an idea of how this works, I'm going to use a typical investment scenario that many of my clients use in Belize when they go to start to invest here. The first thing you do is you form a Belizean IBC and use it as a holding company. Let's call this one Belize Investments Limited. So this is a Belize company that you form, and you set up a bank account at Belize Bank or British Caribbean Bank under this account name, Belize Investments Limited, and the IBC has the account. Now, as you start to invest in different properties, it might be a condo or a piece of land or two, each of those properties now are held in its own IBC, all right? And for those, we use Anguillan IBCs because they need to be a foreign IBC. Belizean IBCs can't hold property in Belize. It would be a domestic IBC, so we use an Anguillan IBC. And the reason we do that is Belize has a reciprocal arrangement with Anguilla in that they recognize each other's companies as being legit, as being registered, as being solid, and agreeable or in line with the laws of each country. So now, as we start to do business with our condo and our land or other investments, we do it under the umbrella of our holding company, Belize Investments Limited. What this does is offers several tax advantages, because remember, until we take personal income from our holding company, there is no taxation. It also shields us from frivolous lawsuits, and there are several stamp tax benefits as well. So what have we considered so far? Well, I know I've done a lot of talking, and I promised to finish early, but just briefly, let's go through these 6. These are the 6 steps that I can advise my clients on. Move your money to safety, open up a foreign bank account, email me if you want information on that, establish new roots abroad. Some of you aren't looking to do that yet. Maybe you're younger, maybe you're just looking around, seeing what options you have. That's okay. At least you know that Belize can be an option for you. Number 3, don't bet your life on a single currency. In other words, look for alternative stores of value. Now that is something that many of you are looking to do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this webinar. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how you can do that here in a bit. Number 4, rely on yourself, develop personal resilience. You might consider Belize as a plan B, as an option. Grow your wealth. Take advantage of investing in Belize that has a very, very low tax rate. And again, for many of you who have already invested with me, you know that in Belize there are no capital gains taxes. Your rental income, if you have a cash flow property, is taxed at 1.75%. And if you come to Belize and form a business, your taxes are usually between 5 and 10%. So offers you plenty of chances to grow your wealth. And also, living in Belize offers you the opportunity to make use of international business companies. So whether your business, bank account, or properties are held in IBCs, it cuts down on your risk and protects them. Now, I got the question before from many of you who have not been to the country yet. Why does Belize offer an advantage over other countries, such as the Dominican Republic or Panama? Panama offers a lot of these same benefits. Perhaps you're looking at Costa Rica and other options. Well, here's why. If a person were to sit down in their living room right now and say to yourself, you know what, Dennis has something here. This Simon Black guy is really interesting, and maybe I would like to develop some better resilience in my life and diversify a little bit. Which country of the world makes sense to me? Which country do I feel best doing some investing in? And you're probably going to look for countries that make you feel all warm and fuzzy. Number one, you're probably going to look for an English-speaking country because it's easier to read about those countries because you can research the internet, get information in your own language. But more than that, you can consider what it's going to be like to walk into a bank in Belize and deal with a banker who speaks English as a first language, to read the application forms, to read the real estate investment forms, to move about and do business in Belize. Now, you can go to Panama or the DR or other countries and do business in those countries. Remember, all the forms at the basic level, all the institutions are going to operate in the native language of the country, which is going to be Spanish or French or another language. It's not going to be English. So Belize is already attracting a disproportionate amount of investors because of that. It also has the lifestyle many people are looking for. It has the medical care that people are looking for, offers a good amount of safety and security, especially because the government itself is stable and secure, and many, many other things, such as property rights, Belize being a low tax jurisdiction. Let's just go through a few of these now that you see on your screen. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on here, but just scan down through this list. Which one of these do you think is most important? For example, the legal system. It's based on British common law, a law that we understand, the same laws that the United States and Canada were founded on. Okay, so we understand that. It's not based on Napoleonic civil law. It's based on laws that we know and understand. That's important because those same laws offer us property protections. Belize has fee simple title. When you're in Belize, you own the property, you own the land, you own the condo or whatever it is you're buying. It's not a lease. It's not a title system that favors locals over foreign owners. The government of Belize backs up and guarantees the property rights of anyone who owns property in Belize, no matter who you are. And also the tax advantages. We talked about those. The natural resources of Belize. Belize has 46% of it is set aside for national park and marine reserve. And as far as international banking, it has the highest reserve requirements in the world. Now, I forgot to mention this. This is important to know because when you're looking for a place to put your money, you need to have confidence in that system. Now, the banks in Belize are required by central bank to keep on reserve in cash 28% of all deposits. So that means if I went down to the bank tomorrow and put in $1,000, they're required to keep 280 of it in cash in the vaults. So the banks are very, very liquid. They're very secure. The medical care is also very good there, and the U.S. or the currency in Belize is pegged to the U.S. dollar with a parachute. I don't want to explain that now; to just take too long, but we'll get into that later if you like. So, what is our solution? Well, many of you already own property in Belize, so you know about the solution, but perhaps we're going to take a look at this in another way that you might not have thought about before. And for those of you who aren't invested yet, you know that John and I are bullish on vacant land. In fact, together we own dozens of parcels of vacant land in the country of Belize, both on the mainland and especially on Ambergris Key. We could choose to put our money anywhere we see fit. We choose vacant land for very good reasons. Number one, it's an easy point of entry. It's extremely easy because land is land. There's very little that can go wrong with it. And for my clients, it's an easy way to plant that flag in another country. So land is much, much cheaper than an improved property. It's easy to pick out. Most of my clients buy it over the internet because with video and pictures these days and Google Earth and whatnot, it's very, very easy to see the land they're purchasing. Not like a condo or a single family home where it has to be inspected and whatnot. So it's an easy point of entry. So my clients are easily able to establish a flag of property ownership outside the United States with land. Also, land has very low carrying cost. Property taxes are extremely low in Belize. Most vacant land parcels have an annual tax rate of $75 US. That's it. Very low. You don't have to worry about HOA fees, utilities, hurricane insurance, all those other things that you have to worry about if you had a condo or home. Land is very, very low cost of maintenance. Many of these parcels are already held in an IBC. Some of the major subdivisions that I represent, such as Palmyra Woods, Ambergris Woods, our latest offering, Grand Mayan, those titles have already been converted into being held by IBCs because of the benefit. So we just pass that benefit right on to our buyers. It also offers what Simon Black refers to as an alternative storage of value. So, what I'm finding is people are investing in Belize, sometimes not so much to look for a high return on investment, but just to look at the return of their investment. So for instance, if they have a couple $100,000 in the stock market, they realize the stock market is extremely volatile. They might take 30 or 60 or $90,000 of that money and just park it in land in Belize. The real estate in general, and I like this quote by the radio real estate guys, that the real estate itself tends to be like a tanker. It moves at a very slow pace, and it's not really subject to being volatile like the markets are. So it's a good place to just park your money. Just buy the land and let it sit there. And then if you need the money, it's liquid. You can sell it. It's not subject to wild mood swings like currency in the market. And it's also not subject to the same things that cash flow properties would be subject to, like the weather, occupancy rates, management. You can take two condos. Let's say you compare side-by-side condos at two different developments in Belize. They both cost the same. They both are $300,000 condos, but the management operates each development completely different. So now you have occupancy rates come into play, management fees, everything. So your return on investment can vary greatly. Vacant land is a much, much simpler investment, and again, easy way to get in the game. And what I like about vacant land also is many IRAs will approve the funding of real estate purchases outside of the US, especially if it's something simple like a piece of land. Because when you're buying foreign real estate with your IRA, remember you can't do it for personal use. So for instance, right now, if you have $250,000 in your IRA account, you can't come to me and say, Dennis, I want a condo that I can use 2 or 3 months a year and then put it in a rental pool. Your IRAs do not allow that type of investing. So use that money into investing in vacant land. Most of my sales these days from my investors are investors using funds they already have in their IRAs, and they're choosing land over improved property. One solution that John and I, again, are very bullish about is buy vacant land in up-and-coming areas, preferably newer subdivisions that are now breaking ground because they're in new and exciting and in parts of Belize that are really coming alive, especially those parts in Ambergris Key. Lot prices tend to start at $30,000 US. And when you're buying vacant land, you realize that, as I said before, it's pretty easy to buy vacant land. It's hard to go wrong. It is easy to go wrong if you're buying in the wrong areas. You need to choose land that has a reason to go up in value or a reason why it's in some way desirable. It has road access. It's getting utilities soon. It's close to other major developments. For instance, right now, the latest subdivision that we're offering, Grand Mayan, is very close to such major resorts that have been built. These are actual pictures here of Belizean shores, Benicia del Caribe, Cocoa Beach, Mata Chica, Las Terrazas. All of these are major resorts in the country of Belize, just a mile or so away for some of these new subdivisions of vacant land that are being promoted. And because of that, these areas are seeing a boom in tourism, and they make good investments. What I also like about some of these subdivisions is their proximity to both the east and the west side beaches. So for instance, right now you're looking at an aerial photo of Grand Belizean Estates, which is sold out. Just to the east or toward the sea is the latest offering of Grand Mayan. Those lots are $30,000. What I like about them is they're located right on that San Pedro Lagoon, so that beautiful body of water there that makes up the San Pedro Lagoon. They're located 1.5 miles from the ocean, which is you see there at the top of your screen. That's the Caribbean Sea, where the reef line is, the snorkeling, the diving, the fishing. But also, what you can't quite see at the bottom of your screen are the crystal clear waters of Ambergris Bay. There you see a picture of Ambergris Bay. The waters are clean, pristine. There's no seagrass. There's no trash. And off in the distance there, you can see Leonardo DiCaprio's island. Buying in an area like this, sinking your money into vacant land that has all of these features around it, is a really, really good investment. And finally, here's another picture looking from north to south. You see San Pedro town there in the yellow over the top of your screen. You see the Caribbean Sea to your upper left. You see the Grand Mayan subdivision outlined in yellow, and then the east-west connection road that connects all of that to both sides of the island and to San Pedro town. So that's about it for me. I used up not quite the entire hour, but if you want more information, I'm sure many of you do, go ahead and shoot me an email, and I will be happy to answer all your questions. But I'm going to take the next 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm going to answer all of your questions live. So if you would, just put them in the question box there, and I will take as many as I have time for. All right. Let's see, we have a question here. It says from a current lot owner, they say they bought a piece of land using their IRA, and we turned it into a self-directed IRA, set up LLC. It's not an IBC. Should we switch from IBC? Okay, all right, this is a good question. So this person is investing in Belize property using funds that they have in their IRA. Now, when you go to invest money in your IRA into a property in Belize, the Belize government needs to be able to register the entity that holds title. So let's say, I use myself an example, Dennis K. Right? So if I go to Belize and I use personal funds, I can take title in my personal name. I can have my name right on there, Dennis K. Or I can have my wife and I on there. Or I can form an LLC in the States or a Belizean or an Anguillan IBC. When you come down with funds from your IRA, the Belize government has a hard time dealing with an IRA because it doesn't know how to register it. That paperwork just doesn't make any sense to a Belizean government. So what they require is that the title be held by some form of company. So the IRA in the United States could form an LLC. That's 100% possible. They could take title with that LLC, or that IRA could form an IBC, which is what I often do with my clients, and that IBC then could hold title. Like I said, most of the properties that my clients are buying already have an IBC attached to them, but for those that don't, then you have the option, form an LLC or form an IBC. All right, next question. How high is the island above sea level? Or what is the highest point above sea level in the country? That's a very, very good question. If you go back and look at some of these aerial photos, I'll kind of explain Ambergris Caye. So here's Ambergris Caye. Ambergris Caye is a coral atoll, so it is not a volcanic island. It was formed over millions of years of coral and sand, and because of that, it is very, very flat. It's about as flat as a pancake, and it rises anywhere between 3 feet in this area that you're looking at now, and when you get up to Rocky Point, some of it's up to around, 10, maybe 13 feet above sea level, but again, that's way far north. Most of the island is 3 to 5, maybe 6 feet above sea level. And the good thing about this part of the country is we don't have a large tidal system here. So the tide is almost imperceptible. And what's nice about the island too is that, sometimes I get the question a lot about flooding. Does the island flood? And like, for instance, yesterday a client asked me, do those lots there in Grand Mayan flood? Because when you're looking at it, it's not too far above sea level. Well, the thing is, even if we get 5 feet of rain, those lots are not going to flood because that lagoon, that big body of water there, isn't a lake. It's not contained. It's sea level water. sea levels can't rise because of rain. So what you do have to watch out for is when we do have a major hurricane, most of the storm surge is broken along the reef line, so we don't get a lot of wave action on our shores, but the actual water level in the lagoon and surrounding the island does rise. And so what we do is we encourage our clients that when they go to build, simply build above the high water line. And when you look at developments such as Mahogany Bay Village, they're doing this today. Reef Village, many other waterfront developments, they're simply building above the high water line. So even in the event of a catastrophic hurricane, if you build out of concrete and build above the high water line, then even though your home might sustain some damage, it's at least going to be standing when the hurricane subsides. Okay, next question. Why has the northern part of the East Coast been slow to develop? What is holding back more investment in areas 5 to 10 miles north of San Pedro? That's a very good question. Let me see, where do I have a picture of, let me just see if I have a picture of, okay. Well, I guess I can use this one. Here, I want to answer this question. This person wants to know, going further north of San Pedro, 5 to 10 miles north, why isn't that area developing faster than it is? Why is it pretty sparse up there? Well, here's the deal. You notice that white line that I have on the screen? Everybody see that? That white line represents the northbound road. There's only a single road that leads from San Pedro town going north, and the road ends at about 9 miles north of town. That road is absolutely horrible. It's a dirt track. It's washed out most of the year. Many months it's impassable by golf cart. I mean, my golf cart got stuck numerous times. So it makes it very difficult for people to want to invest in property up there, because it's very difficult to drive and to get to those lots. I mean, literally, to go a mile can take you an hour because of how bad the roads are. And the only way to access properties going up 5 to 10 miles north was by boat. And not everybody wants to take a boat back and forth to town every time they want to come in. It sounds romantic at first, you know, oh, I'm taking a boat in the town. Well, try it when it's raining or windy or when you're tired, don't feel like it. You want to have road access. So what has happened is the government has understood that the main focus of growth is going north. So the entire white line that you see now, that represents the portion of the northern road that has been paved with concrete. So you can drive from San Pedro town all the way north, 3.5 miles north, to the east-west connection road, where the road takes a left and starts to go toward your left, toward the west part of the island. So that northern road now is paved. So now what that does is that increases accessibility to all lot owners on this north side that is within this 3.5 mile radius. What the exciting news now is for us is that the Belize government is now extending the road another 3.5 miles. So they're going from where I show it here on the map, another 3.5, so to go 7, almost 8 miles north. And what this would do is open up additional parts of the island for development. However, let me kind of go through this a little bit. Did I come back on? All right. What is happening now is that where you see it says Grand Mayan Estates, all right, that is a large development. That's 1,100 lots. Just to the north of that, you see a small subdivision called Palmyra Woods. You see Grand Mayan Estates. What you don't see is to the west of Grand Mayan, you see there's a big subdivision called Ambergris Bay. This is being established as the next town center. San Pedro town, which is you see at the lower part of your screen, that is packed, it's busy, it's crowded, there's nowhere for it to grow. And as you drive north, you have the lagoon next to you, so you can't grow west into the lagoon. So the first opportunity you have to get over to the west side is along the east-west connection road. And so that is where the growth is being concentrated on for the island. So I still don't think for many years we're going to see growth take place between 5 and 10 miles north on Ambergris Key, because there's so many more desirable properties much closer. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, I'll take some additional questions if you like. We have a couple minutes here. All right. Build cost. Somebody wants to know about build cost. Build cost that's a good question. I can send all of you a PDF on that if you'd like. If you buy a piece of vacant land, first of all, what I like is you don't ever have to build. There's no time limits. You can build today if you'd like, or you can build next year, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. There are no build time limits because remember, in Belize, you are the full owner of your property, and property ownership comes with very few restrictions. Now, what they will restrict you on is basic building codes. What you have to do is build within the limits of your property, so you have certain setbacks. You have a height requirement of 3 stories, so you can't go any further than, I think it's 34 feet high, which is actually pretty high considering the island's so flat. You can see for, 10 or more miles if you build up 3 stories. And you can choose to build your home out of Belizean hardwoods. Many are choosing mahogany, a beautiful, beautiful wood to build with, rosewood, bullet tree wood, or you can choose a concrete structure. And what I like about Belize, again, is that if you're a builder in the States, you want to come down and do your own thing, you can just obtain your own building licenses. So I have a client right now who is building in Ambergris Bay. They're building a little lodge, a little home for themselves. He's a builder and he's doing it himself. You can choose to hire a builder on the island, maybe work with an architect, and you have complete freedom. Build costs vary, and it depends on where exactly the property is located as far as how difficult it is to get materials to. But Belizean hardwood homes, I think, are coming in around $100 a square foot right now, and for something concrete with tile, granite countertops, things like that, around 150 to 160 US per foot. All right. I got a good question here. This person says they have bought in Placencia. What growth rate do you think it has? All right. Let me address this because I love Placencia. Placencia is a great place. I view it as a second alternative to Ambergris Key. I believe it is going to grow at a slower rate, a much slower rate than Ambergris Key for many reasons. First of all, if you look at the history of Placencia as compared to Ambergris Key, that's one. But also when you look at the makeup of the topography and what the two areas have to offer. So since you own a Placencia, please don't think that I dislike it or I'm bashing it in any way. But when I look at a place as far as continued growth in tourism, you need to look at simply the fact of where are their people going, not what my personal preference is. Because I tell you, some of my clients prefer Placencia because it's quieter, it's mainland, you can actually have a car. And on Ambergris Key, you have a golf cart, you're not allowed to have a car. Placencia offers you the opportunity to get in your car and drive to the Mayan ruins or drive to Kyle. So I like mainland living. However, 75% of all Americans that get on a plane to Belize end up in Ambergris Key. They prefer Ambergris Key because of, number one, the diving is much, much closer. The diving is literally a quarter mile offshore. The snorkeling is a quarter mile offshore. It has that Caribbean island feel that many people are viewing or thinking about when they want to go on vacation. It has different things that people are looking for in a vacation destination. Placencia also has access to those things, but not as readily. So the diving is further out, the snorkeling is further out. And just looking historically at the tourism, the tourists are preferring the islands over the mainland. The benefits of Placencia is it's quieter. You can have a car. They do have an airport going in there, but the international airport does have a lot of controversy because, first of all, you're going to have to fill up a plane in order for it to be profitable to land there. And if we think prices are a little high now flying into Belize International, with several flights a day being and that cost being spread out over many carriers, the cost to land a major plane in Placencia is going to be up there quite a ways. So I have yet to see how that plays out, but maybe we can talk about more there later. Let's see. Okay, how about this question about internet service? Yes, there is very good internet service in Belize. There is a local provider called BTL, Belize Telecom Services. Absolutely, so it's not a problem. In fact, I do all of my uploading of videos, live streaming. I've never had a problem when doing webinars from Belize. In fact, the guy that I was telling you about that had an internet-based business, his entire business was doing live online webinars once a week. And over the 5 years that he lived there, I don't think he ever had a time when it went down and wasn't able to hold his webinar. And he's got obviously it's critical that he have that. So internet is not a problem. All right, let's you know what, I see a lot more questions coming in, and I'm going just over an hour now. I'd like to stop this now because an hour is about the limit of my voice and the limit of the attention span of a lot of my attendees. But if you would like more information regarding anything I've talked about today, the 6 pillars of success, of self-reliance, any of these lots that I've talked about in Grand Mayan, other opportunities such as cash flow properties, syndications, things like that, just go ahead and shoot me an email. You have it, DennisKii@gmail.com. I appreciate you attending today, and I think thanks for your support. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you at some point in the future, and to working with you and seeing what your goals are as far as Belize is concerned. So again, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for attending. Email me your questions, email me your thoughts, and we'll be following up with each other soon. Cheers.